William Frank Savoie Jr. was born March 10th, 1942 in St. Bernardine's Hospital in San Bernardino. In his youth, he was a star tennis player and a star golf player. He could have gone pro with golf if he wanted to, but he decided to be a carpenter because he liked working with his hands. It was a very fun childhood. We had 2.5 acres, and ½ acre of it was all his lumber. And we called him Papa Bear, and he called himself Papa Bear. My dad has lived in the Valley of Enchantment, which is a mobile home park in lovely Crestline, California. I'm making this project because Americans have the stigma that talking about death is a bad thing. Sorry. Anyways, we all have to bury our parents, and this is my story.
Keep on trucking.
January 1st, my sister called my dad and because the temperatures were dropping to 35 degrees, and my dad had been leaving his back door open 365 days a year so his little dog could pee. And he wasn't answering the phone, and finally my mom called him and he said, "I'm alive. Tell them to leave me alone." Click. So my sister Annette drove 5 hours and found him in complete disrepair, hadn't changed his socks in 30 days. She took his socks off and the skin came with the socks, and we found out he was in really bad health. He had heart failure, and when you have heart failure, the water needs to go somewhere because your body can't regulate all this influx of water, and so it starts pushing it out your skin, and usually it's the feet and the legs. I would see him once a year because I live in Oregon now, and he would get his hair cut once a year.
All my hair is going off.
I arrived on January 17th, and we start the process of taking him to as many VA hospital appointments as possible.
Any chest pain, sir?
This is my journey with my dad during the last couple weeks of his life. There's mental illness mixed in with the wounds he's acquired from heart failure.
I think that we have mental issues.
All the arrows go to Cherie.
My dad got admitted to the hospital for 2 days, and they told him he had heart failure. His heart valve was inoperable.
On your echocardiogram, what we saw was that your heart was barely moving. The heart function is very, very low. You have a really leaky valve. That's probably the reason for all of this.
Sometimes he would say, "I hear seagulls," and I would say, "No, that's the leaky valve making it squeak," because you could literally, when he took a deep breath, hear this wheeze, and it did sound like seagulls.
Who told you that you don't have heart failure anymore?
The doctor.
But also, you learn that when someone is dying, that they have hallucinations.
Who is it?
You already told me who he was.
Don Quixote?
I guess you can call him that. He's my buddy.
He's out by the avocado tree?
He's just on the other side of the glass top.
What does he tell you?
What does he tell me? Are you some kind of shrink or something? He can move his jaw and everything, but he's wilting. He goes like the... He's got the big nose and the hat, and he's got the horse.
My dad lived like a homeless person, but he had a house. Hole in the roof in 2 different places, rain coming through. You could feel that the floor was rotten. He used all that stuff as leverage instead of having a walker. Not only had it been a crutch of his life, it had become like a real crutch in him maneuvering around the house. He was in the hospital for 2 days, and while he was gone, I cleaned up his bathroom, I cleaned up his laundry room. His reaction, he was pissed.
Didn't have my permission, did you?
The first thing he did when he saw the empty bathroom is he went outside and tried to bring things in again, because I have the hoarding disease, and we have this unrelentless need to fill the space. I don't know if any of you have worn Crocs before, but they have these circles on the bottom of them. And when you wear a pair of Crocs every day for about 3 years, those circles fall out. I had to throw away the Crocs and he went ballistic.
Guys are all pitching in to help Papa Bear.
We're trying to help you stay here while you're ambulatory. That's the goal. So you could keep your dolly
That's the name of the building. Ambulatory.
We realized he cannot live in the high altitude of Crestline. Crestline's, I think, about 4,500 elevation or something like that. The doctor said if you stay in Crestline, you're going to have to be on oxygen. And so I made the hard choice to go turn him in for self-harm to social services. And it was the hardest thing I ever did. But I had to do it because I needed someone to intervene. She came up and they had a good long hour chat, and she told him, I need eyes on you, so you have to go with your daughters. I wanted him to actually come to Oregon eventually, but I needed to clean up my hoard to make that happen since I have the same disease as he does. I drove him to my sister's house in Morro Bay. In the middle of all this, he gets to hang out with his grandson that's now about a year old. His last request was to see the super bloom. Got him in the car, my mom came with us. We picked him some puppies and he was very happy.
Tell her about the letter.
For me,
Yeah.
easing the pressure off of me,
Okay.
saying I'm not due to die yet.
Okay.
And then he dies exactly 1 week to the day. He had prepaid for his cremation, so you just call and you say, my dad has passed, and they come and pick up the body. You think all this sentiment will go into it, and it's literally like ordering a pizza. My second grandson was born 17 days, almost to the minute, and I got to meet my new grandson and pick up my dad's remains on the same day. Now we have to clean out his house. He had a storage unit. What in the world was in there? We were throwing away a life. I knew the stories behind all his stuff. When we found the suitcase full of tennis rackets with mirrors in them, and I'm like, this is an art project he did with tennis rackets from the 70s. We put his entire contents of his house on Facebook and on Craigslist for free. And I'll never, ever badmouth tweakers ever again. This group of people took 11 loads. They were the most helpful, most efficient people that we really needed at that time. This is Dolly. My dad called her his guardian angel, and if he didn't have her to get up to feed, I don't think he would have got up every day. The day after we got my dad moved, he said, you could take Dolly, and so this is my inheritance. So no money could possibly touch having a little loving dog, huh?
Sure, you don't have to document me sleeping. That's a total overkill.